If you're looking to start a new character in Fear and Hunger, you'll probably be wanting to choose the best skills that you can. So with each character starting out with different types of skills and different items, it's important to know what to choose from. To begin with, you'll want to make sure that you play the intro, because if not, you'll get a predetermined set of skills and items for your character, and usually they're not the best to start out with when you're playing the game. Firstly, let's start with Kahara, the Mercenary. The Mercenary is a good choice if you're just starting out in Fear and Hunger, as he starts with a really good range of skills. So the first choice you'll have to make is either become a pickpocketer, become a burglar, or lead an honest life. Now, really, it just means if you become a pickpocketer, you'll learn steal, become a burglar, and you'll learn lockpicking. But if you lead an honest life, you'll only get around 30 silver. Lockpicking or steal are both good skills to learn, so really it doesn't matter with either one. You can either choose steal and get some valuable items by stealing them from enemies, or you can go with lockpicking and still open up some doors or even get the girl early if you choose that skill. The next choice is either abandon your comrades or fight until your last breath. Now, fight until your last breath, again, you'll only get silver, so it's not really worth choosing that option. If you abandon your comrades, you can get escape plan, which means that you can run away from battles with a very high success rate. So I'd always choose the abandon your comrades. The next, you've got a selection of 4 choices to choose from. If you choose the first one, you'll get alcohol and a rather itchy lower part. The next one is obviously food. The next one is healing items, which isn't so bad as that is harder to come by, so that'd probably be my second choice. Then the last one is rush straight to your mission, which allows you to learn dash ability, and that means you can walk faster in the dungeon, which is the most important, so I choose rush straight to your mission. So the next one with Darcy the Knight, first choices you'll get is either quickly step aside and dodge it, or raise your buckler in defense. Now, if you choose the first one, you will gain the ability fast stance, and if you choose the second one, you will gain the ability defense stance. They're both good skills to have. With defense stance, you get the evasion buff and perfect guard, which means it prevents limb loss. And with fast stance, you get 10 plus agility. And that basically means for the majority of battles, you will gain an extra 10. Personally, I'd always choose fast stance over defense stance, as that extra 10 is really valuable in Fear and Hunger. The next selection you'll get is either break ties with your family or listen to them. If you listen to them, you'll only gain silver, so it's not the best choice. You need to break ties with your family. This will also mean that you go on the path to gain dash. So the next choice you'll get is either manage the defences or spearhead the coming assault. Now, if you manage the defences, you'll get a sword and plate armour and leg guards, and spearhead the coming assault, you'll get iron armour and arm guards. It's really a choice between the leg guards or the arm guards, because they both prevent dismemberment of that limb. And because the enemies usually attack the arms and the risk of losing an arm is high, I'd always go with the arm guards instead of the leg guards, so I'd always choose the second option. Then you're presented with 3 choices. You can either stock up on equipment, stock up on food, or rush straight after him. Again, I choose rush straight after him because you get the dash ability. But if you did want to consider the other 2 options, with the first one and stocking up on equipment, you will get a blue vial, a quill, and tinder boxes. And with the second option, you'll only get food. With the Dark Priest, you're more limited with your choices if you want the dash ability, because a lot of them are tied up to dash at the end, and if you choose other choices you won't get dash. So on the basis that we are going for dash as it's a very important skill, we are going to make our selection based on that. With the first two choices, you'll want to choose accept your defeat, and again that's tied up to dash at the end. If you did choose strike your dagger to her spine, that means you'll get necromancy, which is a good ability, but you can still learn that later on in the game, and compared to getting dash early on, I think it's basically worth choosing dash over the necromancy. So for choosing accept your defeat, you'll learn mastery over insects, which means you can talk to insects and you can get valuable items from them. You can also do the cockroach quest later on in the game. When we come up to the second selection, you'll want to quietly leave and run away, because again that's tied up to dash. If you choose to set the temple on fire, you will gain pyromancy, which is an okay ability, but again I'd prefer to choose dash over it. And for choosing quietly leave and run away, that means we do get the Alchemelia book, which means we start off with some helpful magic. As we move on to our next selection, we can choose pray for Gorgoroth, Sylvian, Olmer, or God of the Depths. Now this just basically raises your affinity with one of them. If you pray for Gorgoroth, that means you can open up magic dealing with destruction, so that would be necromancy, black orb. If you choose Sylvian, you can get healing spells, so that's healing whispers, loving whispers. With Olmer, you only really learn one ability, which is blood portal, making this the least favourable choice out of all four of them, since it's really easy just to gain affinity with Olmer and learn it yourself. Since it's impossible to gain max affinity with the God of the Depths with Enki, the Dark Priest, it's worth considering that when you choose which god to pray to. Gorgoroth is probably worth considering too, since you open up the destruction magic and he has some really powerful magic that you can learn. With Sylvian, you can learn the healing whispers just by gaining one affinity with them, so it's much more easier. Wouldn't consider that one. And because you can only learn one magic spell with Olmer, which is blood portal, I definitely wouldn't choose that one. Basically, it'd be down to Gorgoroth or God of the Depths. The next selection you'll get is stock up on magical items, intoxicant, or healing items. If you've gone for the dash ability, you'll want to choose rush straight after him. Other than that, if you choose the top selection, you can get yourself a soul stone. The second option, you'll get yourself a pipe, and the third option, you'll get yourself some cloth fragments and a blue vial. If you didn't go for the dash ability, you'll want to choose one of the other three options, and I'd probably choose the soul stone out of all three for my second choice. For the last character, we have the Outlander. Your first choice is either the bow and arrows or the axe and shield. If you choose the bow and arrows, you can shoot from afar before you initiate combat, and that just gives us a chance to dismember certain enemies before initiating combat. And with the axe and shield, you can't do that, so I'd probably always go with the bow and arrows if I chose the Outlander. The next selection, you can either choose Devour Your Fallen Comrades or Don't Give In. If you choose the Devour option, you will gain the skill Devour, and the second one you will gain the skill Bloodlust. Both of them aren't the best abilities. With Devour, you can devour enemies afterwards and regain some hunger, but the issue is that you usually end up clicking it so fast after you've killed the enemy that you end up devouring them and then losing any items that they were holding, so you have to be careful if you do choose the Devour option. Bloodlust is an ability, if you activate it, you will go into a kind of rage for 3 turns, which increases your attack and attacks the enemy, but you have no control over the character anymore. Usually, however, you'll end up losing bloodlust because the enemy attacks you, you lose it, and in effect you also lose a 10 because you selected it in the first round, the enemy attacks you, you've lost it, and then you have to start all over again. So both skills aren't that great. Still, I'd go with Devour. I'd be incredibly careful when I've defeated the enemy and clicking it afterwards. The second choice you've got is either take the souvenirs from Vinland or flee back to your ship. If you choose the take souvenir option, you'll get a coin flip. You'll get a soul stone either way if you fail the coin flip or if you win it, but if you fail the coin flip, you'll get the Panophobia fear. Plus, you'll also lock yourself out of acquiring the dash ability if you choose take the souvenirs. So I definitely choose flee back to the ship so I can be on the path to get the dash ability in the next selection. In the next part you'll want to choose rush straight after him if you are going for the dash ability still. If you stock up on equipment then you'll get iron arrows and a bear trap, food for the next one, and healing item for the third selection. Again, dash ability is too valuable to lose, so I'd always try to aim for the dash ability, but remember it's also dependent on your other options before this. And that completes this video about the best skills to choose for each character in Fear and Hunger. It's what I normally choose if I'm choosing them characters. I think it's the easiest to play with. Anyway, I hope that helps.